You did not arrive here by accident. Something greater than you, something older than time itself, has positioned you in this very moment. Heaven has a way of interrupting the ordinary, of stepping into your timeline right when you're about to question everything. And this right here, right now, is one of those divine interruptions. You didn't stumble onto this message. You were brought to it, drawn, pulled, led, because there is something in you that heaven refuses to let die. What you don't realize is that you were marked for death not once, not twice, but 3 different times. There were moments when your life should have ended, situations where the outcome should have been fatal, times when the enemy aimed for your destruction with precision, with force, with intention. Yet each time, death passed you by. Each time, something invisible stepped between you and what was meant to kill you. You were spared, not because you were lucky, but because heaven intervened violently, decisively, and intentionally. And now, the veil begins to lift. The question that has lingered in the back of your mind for years rises to the surface. Why are you still alive? Why did you walk away from the accident? Why did the sickness release its grip? Why did the chaos not consume you? Why did the mental darkness not swallow your soul whole? Why did every attempt to break you fail? You've had near-death moments, tangible, emotional, spiritual. Accidents that could have ended you. Illnesses that should have defeated you. Seasons of chaos where you were barely holding on. Nights of mental darkness where your spirit was under siege. Yet through all of this, Psalm 91:11 was silently at work. For he will command his angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. You were protected even when you didn't know protection was happening. Angels were dispatched on your behalf when you weren't even aware a battle was taking place. Your destiny could not be aborted. Your mission could not be replaced. The enemy tried to silence you before your voice could rise. He attempted to break you before your purpose could manifest. He targeted you because he saw something in you that you had not yet discovered. But heaven said no. Heaven said not this one. Heaven said not their time. And now something inside you is stirring. Something ancient, something real, something spiritual. A pull you can feel but can't explain. A quickening in your spirit, a shift in your atmosphere, a whisper in your soul, awakening you to the truth. You are still alive for a reason. This is not a coincidence. This is a calling. If this message is already confirming something deep within you, something you felt but couldn't articulate, type Amen as an act of alignment. Let your spirit acknowledge what heaven has been trying to show you, and stay until the end. A sealing prayer awaits you, one that marks the beginning of awakening, activation, and divine clarity over your life. When you look back over your life, you begin to realize something unsettling, yet undeniable. By earthly standards, you weren't supposed to survive. The things you endured, the trauma, the violence, the sickness, the despair, were the kinds of storms that don't just bruise people. They break them, they bury them, they silence them. Yet here you are, still breathing, still standing, still fighting. And the more you examine those chapters, the more obvious it becomes that your life defies natural explanation. There were moments that should have ended you, trauma that should have shattered your sanity, violence that should have taken your safety, illness that should have taken your strength, despair that should have taken your will. You lived through things that others never recovered from. You walked through fires that consumed people with far less on their shoulders. And still, something shielded you, something held you, something refused to let darkness have the final word. That something is what many call coincidence, but in reality, it was divine protection operating as an invisible shield. It was the hand of God moving in places you couldn't see, intercepting dangers you didn't recognize, and blocking outcomes you never even knew were forming. Divine protection is not always loud. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like nothing happened, but the truth is, something did happen. Heaven stepped in before destruction reached you. And when you understand Jeremiah 1-5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. You begin to see your past with new eyes. You weren't just another person walking through life. You were someone God placed a calling on before your first breath. Chosen ones are selected early, marked early, and because of that, they are often attacked early. Many chosen people don't begin life in peace, they begin life in chaos. Not because they are cursed, but because their existence threatens darkness. This is why certain interventions in your life were disguised as delays. There were times you felt stuck, frustrated, blocked, or slowed down. But heaven wasn't punishing you, it was protecting you. A closed door was not rejection, it was divine redirection. A delayed opportunity wasn't failure, it was preservation. You were being moved away from what would have wounded you, weakened you, or derailed your destiny. Your journey mirrors the story of Elijah, preserved in the wilderness, hidden away when destruction sought him, fed when resources ran dry, sustained when the world around him was collapsing. Just like Elijah, heaven tucked you into places you didn't want to be, but absolutely needed to be. You were being positioned, not punished. Every unseen intervention was heaven blocking what would have destroyed you. Every escape was orchestrated. Every close call was redirected. Every moment where you felt alone was actually a moment where God walked beside you. Psalm 23:4 reminds us, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." You didn't walk through darkness alone. You walked through with a divine presence that refused to leave you. And now, as you reflect on your life, you realize something profound. Your survival is evidence, not coincidence. Evidence that you are chosen. Evidence that your story carries weight. Evidence that your purpose is greater than your pain. Evidence that heaven has invested too much in you to let your destiny be aborted. You are not alive by accident. You are alive because divine protection has been working around you long before you ever understood it. And that truth is only the beginning of your awakening. Escape has shown the first attempt on your life. When you trace your story back to its earliest chapters, you begin to see that death's first approach didn't wait for adulthood. It came quietly, subtly, and early. It didn't knock on the door of your life gently, it tried to force its way in before you even knew how to fight. Some people meet their greatest battles later in life, but chosen ones face them almost immediately. And the reason is simple. Destiny attracts resistance. For many like you, the attacks didn't begin when you were strong, confident, or aware. They began in childhood, and in some cases, even in the womb. Before you learned to speak, before you understood danger, before you could defend your own spirit, something tried to end your story. This is what many spiritual teachers call spiritual assassination before maturity, an intentional attempt to silence a destiny before it can make noise on earth. If you look back, you'll see moments that felt strange or unexplainable. Illnesses with no clear cause, accidents that could have taken your breath away, nightmares that terrified your spirit, trauma that left deep imprints long before you understood the world. These were not random events. They were early attempts to disconnect you from your calling before you were even old enough to understand you had one. But in the midst of all this, something else was happening, something the enemy underestimated. Your sensitivity and spiritual gifting were awakening early. You weren't just a sensitive child. You were spiritually attuned. You felt things deeply. You sensed atmospheres. You noticed what others dismissed. You had an inner knowing, an intuition, a spiritual antenna that marked you as different from the beginning. And while darkness tried to use that sensitivity to break you, heaven used it to shape you. Psalm 121:7 whispers, a truth you may have never connected to your past. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. Even when you were too young to pray, too young to fight, too young to understand what was happening around you, God watched over you. His protection wrapped around you like a shield you didn't know you were carrying. Behind the scenes, hidden spiritual warfare surrounded your early years. You were not imagining the heaviness you felt as a child. You were not imagining the danger that seemed to follow you. Heaven fought battles you never saw, won victories you never witnessed, and pushed back forces that would have swallowed someone less marked, less chosen, less divinely protected. And after that first escape, after the moment death failed to take what it reached for something activated in you, you may not have understood it then, but your spirit felt the shift. You began to develop clarity beyond your age, depth beyond your environment, sensitivity beyond explanation. Your awakening didn't start in adulthood. Its roots were planted in the moment of your very first escape. This awakening wasn't a coincidence, it was the beginning of recognition. Your purpose began whispering to you in childhood. You felt out of place, different, older inside than your peers. And that feeling wasn't loneliness. It was early spiritual awareness. The truth is, your purpose is tied to your survival, not accident. You didn't survive that first attempt on your life by chance. You survived because your spirit had work left to do, because heaven had already written your name into assignments you hadn't walked into yet. Because the world needed what you carry. This was only the first escape, the first sign that your life was never meant to end before your purpose began. Escape #2, the attack on your mind. When the enemy realizes he cannot destroy your body, he shifts his strategy to your mind. The physical attempts failed. You survived the early assaults. You walked away from dangers designed to end you. So the battlefield changed locations. Instead of trying to stop your heartbeat, the enemy began trying to silence your mind. Instead of trying to take your life, he tried to take your will to live. Because chosen ones rarely fall from external attacks, it's the internal warfare that becomes the fiercest. This is why you walked through seasons of depression, anxiety, numbness, and silent suffering that no one around you understood. People saw you functioning, but they didn't see the heaviness inside. They saw your smile, but they didn't see the fatigue in your spirit. You learned how to carry pain quietly, how to break invisibly, and how to survive battles no one else knew were happening. And during these seasons, a new strategy appeared. The lies whispered internally. You're not enough. You're failing. You're alone. You're weak. Nothing will ever change. These thoughts were not random. They were crafted to erode your identity and bury your purpose beneath discouragement. You weren't fighting yourself. You were fighting something that wanted access to your destiny. This internal attack led to emotional breakdowns, mental exhaustion, and isolation. You found yourself withdrawing, not because you didn't want connection, but because you felt too mentally fragile to be around noise, conflict, or misunderstanding. Your soul became tired. Your mind stretched thin. Your heart held too much at once. Yet even in your darkest internal nights, something kept you from collapsing completely. Because Psalm 34-18 was unfolding in silence. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Isaiah 10:10. You may not have felt God's presence, but He was closest to you in those moments. He sat beside you when you cried alone. He comforted you when your heart was too heavy to whisper a prayer. He guarded your thoughts when the enemy tried to overwhelm them. You didn't realize it then, but heaven stayed with you through every mental storm. Much of the damage you endured came from toxic environments and invisible wounds, pain that didn't look like pain, trauma that had no scars, words that cut deeper than knives, and relationships that drained you spiritually. You survived situations that quietly tore at your identity and emotions until you weren't sure who you were anymore. But even in these invisible battles, heaven kept intervening. You experienced quiet moments of rescue, a message that arrived at the right time, a verse that comforted your soul, a song that lifted your spirit, a sunrise that reminded you life was still worth living. These small moments were not small at all. They were divine interruptions reaching into your mind and pulling you back from the edge. Because inside you was a force the enemy underestimated: holy resistance, the kind that only chosen ones carry. You survived internal darkness that should have collapsed you. You pushed through nights that tried to swallow your purpose. You endured spiritual heaviness that would have broken someone without your calling. And in the process, something extraordinary happened. Your survival became spiritual strength. You didn't just make it through, you grew through it. You gained discernment, depth, empathy, resilience, and an unshakable awareness of who walks with you. The attack intended to destroy you became the training that fortified you. And as you emerged from that mental war, you began to see something clearly. This internal escape revealed an unshakable purpose. The mind that was targeted is the mind now awakened. The spirit that was attacked is the spirit now strengthened. The identity that was questioned is the identity now confirmed. You didn't just survive, you transformed. And the enemy's failure to break your mind became the evidence that your calling is unstoppable. Escape #3. The physical brush with death. There are moments in life that cannot be explained away, moments where the spiritual and physical collide so violently that they leave a permanent imprint on your soul. This third escape was one of those moments, a literal, tangible brush with death. Maybe it was an accident so sudden you didn't have time to think. Maybe it was violence that came too close. Maybe it was a medical collapse where your life hung by a thread. Whatever form it took, the danger was real. It had weight. It had presence. And for a moment, everything in your world shifted. In those seconds, time slowed down as if eternity itself held its breath, watching the outcome unfold. People who have never experienced this won't understand the sensation, the way the world goes silent, the way your spirit suddenly becomes aware, the way you feel suspended between what could happen and what heaven has already decided. It's an eerie stillness, a sacred pause, a moment where your life flashes before you, not to terrify you, but to remind you that your story isn't finished. After it was over, people around you probably said, "You're lucky." They looked at the situation from the outside and concluded that you escaped by chance, randomness, coincidence. But deep in your spirit, you knew better. You knew heaven intervened. You knew something stepped in front of the danger. Something altered the outcome. Something rerouted the impact. You escaped not because luck favored you, but because divine protection surrounded you. Psalm 21:11-12 describes what happened in the unseen realm. Though they plot evil against you, they cannot succeed. You will aim your arrows at their faces. What the enemy planned could not unfold. What darkness set in motion was disrupted. What was meant to harm you was dismantled before it could take root. This wasn't just survival, this was spiritual victory. When you replay the moment in your mind, you recognize the seconds and angles that should have ended you. 1 inch closer, 1 second later, one different outcome, and your life would have shifted forever. But someone adjusted the details, the timing, the trajectory, the impact. There is no human explanation for why it happened the way it did. That's because divine hands were rewriting the ending. Heaven didn't just protect you, heaven interfered. Heaven stepped into the story and changed the script. And where death expected a period, God wrote a comma. Where destruction expected finality, God inserted continuation. You may carry scars and memories that testify, physical marks, emotional echoes, flashes of the moment that still make your heart tighten. But those scars are not signs of defeat. They are proof of preservation. They are reminders that you walked through something that should have taken you out, but instead, it became the catalyst for your awakening. And if you listen closely, you'll hear what heaven declared over you that day. Not this time, not this one. That was the decree. That was the verdict. You were not allowed to die because your destiny had not yet fully awakened. The world had not yet received what you were meant to give. Your voice had not yet reached the places it was destined to influence. You were preserved on purpose. After such a near miss, you didn't just return to life as usual. You returned with clarity and spiritual authority. Something within you sharpened. You saw life differently. You saw people differently. You saw purpose differently. Death's brush didn't weaken you, it refined you. It reminded you that your life carries weight, that your calling is real, that your existence matters. This was not just an escape, it was a spiritual confirmation, a message written in survival. You are still here because you are still needed. When you survive what was designed to destroy you, something shifts inside you, not just emotionally, but spiritually. After each escape, it's as if your inner wiring is torn apart and rebuilt with new strength, new clarity, new purpose. You begin to understand that purpose always outranks pain. What you endured wasn't meant to crush you. It was meant to shape you. Every wound became a doorway. Every tear became a teacher. Every storm carved depth into your spirit that pain alone could never produce. As you look back, you will notice something astonishing. Heaven exercised a veto over every plan the enemy tried to write into your story. Destruction drafted one version of you. Trauma drafted another. Darkness drafted yet another. But heaven reviewed those drafts and stamped each one with the same divine word: denied. The danger was real. The threat was real. But heaven's no was louder than the enemy's yes. You are standing here today because God overruled what was meant to erase you. And this is where the true mystery begins, because each escape activated another layer of your calling. You didn't just walk away from danger, you walked into deeper purpose. You didn't just survive, you awakened. Every time you escaped an attack, physical, mental, spiritual, your spirit downloaded something new. A new sense of responsibility, a new depth, a new spiritual hunger, a new layer of identity you didn't possess before. The battles didn't weaken you, they revealed you. This is why Jeremiah 33:3 resonates so deeply with chosen ones. Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and hidden things you do not know. After each escape, you began to receive revelation and hidden instruction, not through loud voices or dramatic visions, but through subtle understanding. You started to see beyond the surface. You recognized patterns you once overlooked. You felt warnings before danger arrived. Your intuition sharpened. Your dreams became more meaningful. Your inner knowing became more accurate. Heaven wasn't just protecting you, it was teaching you. And the more heaven taught you, the more your sensitivity transformed into discernment. What once felt like emotional overreaction revealed itself to be spiritual perception. You weren't too sensitive, you were spiritually aware. You could sense deception. You could feel shifts in atmosphere. You could detect truth beneath words. What used to confuse you now guides you. As this inner rewiring continued, patterns, timing, and atmospheres became visible in ways you never noticed before. You started recognizing cycles in your life, doors that opened only at the right moment, people who entered with purpose, obstacles that appeared as preparation. You realized that nothing was random, nothing was accidental. Everything carried meaning. Everything carried instruction. This is why nothing in your life feels ordinary after awakening. Simple moments feel sacred. Ordinary days feel purposeful. Encounters feel orchestrated. Random thoughts feel like whispers. You begin living with spiritual awareness instead of survival instinct. Your life shifts from chaos to clarity, from guessing to discerning, from reacting to responding. And after each escape, divine recalibration takes place. Heaven recenters you, realigns you, redirects you, strengthens the areas that were attacked, sharpens the areas that were dulled, awakens the parts of you that were dormant. You become more grounded, more alert, more spiritually mature. Every brush with death birthed more truth. Every mental battle birthed more wisdom. Every spiritual attack birthed more authority. The rewiring wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It wasn't random, it was intentional. It wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary. You are not the same person who entered those battles. You are the person who walked out of them transformed. There comes a season, sometimes early, sometimes stretching across years, where you look around and feel painfully aware that you're behind. While others sprint, you feel stuck. While others rise, you feel paused. This inner ache is familiar to every chosen one, because feeling late or left behind is often the first sign that your life is operating on a different timeline than everyone else's. What looks like delay is usually evidence that heaven is scheduling your destiny with precision, not speed. But here is the truth: you slowly awaken to delay is refinement, not punishment. What felt like stagnation was actually construction. What felt like silence was actually calibration. You weren't being overlooked, you were being prepared. You weren't being denied, you were being deepened. There is a spiritual craftsmanship happening in every chosen life. And that work takes longer because the assignment is heavier. Some destinies require more fire. Some callings require more chiseling. Some purposes require more time in the secret, unseen places. This is why Habakkuk 2-3 becomes a lifeline to your soul. For the vision awaits its appointed time. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. The promise is not simply that your destiny will come, but that it will come at the exact moment heaven scheduled it. Not a second too early and not a heartbeat too late. When you finally grasp this, you begin to understand that the waiting wasn't wasted. The slowness wasn't failure. The pauses weren't detours. You were being aligned with an appointed time that nothing and no one can take from you. But what makes this more complex is that the early attacks on your life were designed specifically to fracture your identity long before you reached that appointed moment. Darkness tried to break you early so you would never step into who you were born to be. The assaults on your mind, the isolation, the betrayals, the childhood wounds, these weren't coincidences. They were preemptive strikes. The enemy saw the trajectory of your life and attempted to distort it before you discovered your strength. Yet even in those attacks, heaven intervened repeatedly. You didn't always recognize it at the time, the sudden shifts, the unexpected escapes, the inexplicable mercy, but heaven kept stepping between you and destruction. Every intervention preserved not just your life but your future. Every rescue protected not just your body but your purpose. You didn't just survive attacks, you survived the timeline sabotage meant to derail your destiny. And here's the mystery. Once refinement does its work, acceleration always comes. The years you thought were lost become the years that strengthen your foundation. The delays become fuel for divine momentum. And when God decides it's time, 1 year of obedience makes up for 10 years of waiting. Doors open without effort. Connections appear without striving. Breakthroughs arrive without forcing. Everything that once resisted suddenly aligns. This is the moment when what was buried begins to rise. Gifts that were dormant start waking up. Dreams you thought were dead breathe again. Strength you didn't know you had begins to surface. The dormant becomes active. The hidden becomes visible. The overlooked becomes undeniable. Your own spirit begins to testify that something is shifting. Something is coming alive. Because in the end, the delays were not delays at all. You were being sharpened for destiny. Sharpened through fire. Sharpened through endurance. Sharpened through brokenness, revelation, and rebirth. Delays didn't slow you down. They sculpted you into someone the future can depend on. You are not late. You are arriving right on time, stronger, wiser, and spiritually unshakable. You don't have to look back very far to realize something unusual about your story. You were born into warfare, not peace. While others entered the world with stability, safety, or predictability, you walked into a battlefield. Before you learned to speak, life was already teaching you how to survive. Before you understood your own name, you were already learning how to fight invisible battles. Chaos wasn't an interruption, it was the environment you were born into, and it shaped you long before you understood why. And with time, you begin to recognize that the conflict surrounding your early life wasn't random. There were generational patterns you were sent to break. Cycles of fear, poverty, trauma, addiction, silence, or spiritual blindness followed your bloodline for years, maybe generations, until you arrived. You weren't the weakest link. You were the new beginning. You weren't the one meant to continue the cycle. You were the interruption heaven released into that bloodline. The turbulence you were born into was not evidence of abandonment. It was evidence of assignment. That is why the battles came early and came hard, because attacks always reveal value. Thieves don't break into empty houses. Darkness does not waste resources on average destinies. The intensity of the warfare against you is the clearest confirmation that you carry something rare, something disruptive, something heaven approved and hell recognized. The relentless pressure wasn't meant to destroy you, it was meant to signal what was inside you. This truth echoes through Isaiah 49:1, which declares that you were called before birth, named by God while still in the womb. Your purpose was etched into eternity before you took your first breath, and because of that, darkness recognized your identity before you did. The warfare wasn't because of who you were in the moment, it was because of who you would become. Your calling provoked opposition long before you understood it. The mark on your life was visible in the spiritual realm long before it was visible to you. But even with all the chaos, something remarkable stands out. You survived every early assault. Everything that was supposed to break you became the very thing that built you. Everything that was meant to silence you ended up sharpening your voice. Every blow that was intended to stop you ended up awakening you. You walked through storms meant to drown you, and came out carrying wisdom, resilience, and spiritual clarity that cannot be taught, only forged. And now, because of everything you've endured, you walk with spiritual weight. You carry an authority that suffering taught you, a discernment that darkness sharpened, and a compassion that only broken places can produce. People may not understand why you speak the way you speak, why you sense things before they happen, or why you cannot settle for shallow living, but heaven knows. You earned your depth. You earned your awareness. You earned your spiritual backbone. This is why, at this stage of your journey, you begin to realize that activation begins where survival ends. The moment you stop merely trying to live through your battles is the moment you begin to step into the reason you survived them. The shift is subtle but powerful. You move from endurance to purpose, from reaction to intention, from being attacked to being awakened. You were not born into peace because peace would not have prepared you. You were born into warfare because warfare produced the warrior inside you. Your survival was not random. Your battles were not meaningless. Your endurance was not for nothing. You were being shaped, strengthened, and sharpened, not for defeat, but for destiny. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when you suddenly realize something has shifted not around you, but around how the spiritual realm perceives you. Your light is no longer hidden. The battles you've survived, the awakenings you've embraced, the clarity you've gained, all of it has made you spiritually visible. You carry a glow that can't be dimmed, an authority that can't be faked, and an inner radiance that both heaven and darkness can see. You may not always feel powerful, but in the invisible realm, your presence is unmistakable. And because you are now seen, guarding your heart and presence becomes essential, just as Proverbs 4:23 instructs. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. This guarding is not about becoming closed off. It's about becoming discerning. Not everyone deserves access to your spirit. Not every environment deserves to shape your emotions. Not every voice deserves to influence your path. When God elevates you spiritually, the first instruction is almost always protection, because what you carry is precious. This is why discernment begins to function as divine armor. You notice things you once ignored. You sense motives before words are spoken. You detect spiritual heaviness in places others call normal. You feel misalignment in relationships before anything is said. You are no longer walking blindly, you are walking spiritually awake. And this discernment is not paranoia. It is heaven's way of keeping you aligned, shielded, and prepared. Suddenly, you realize that your sensitivity to atmospheres is actually spiritual intelligence. What others call overthinking is your spirit detecting hidden dynamics. What others call too emotional is actually your inner radar warning you of unseen shifts. Chosen ones are rarely comfortable in environments that drain them because their spirit is too tuned to the unseen. Your awareness is not a weakness, it's a weapon. It helps you navigate rooms, relationships, decisions, and seasons with accuracy. As your awareness deepens, you also learn that boundaries become a form of holy protection. You no longer apologize for protecting your peace. You no longer feel guilty for stepping back from draining relationships. You no longer feel pressured to explain why certain conversations, connections, or commitments no longer resonate with you. When God calls you higher, He also calls you to protect the altitude. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. And gates open selectively, intentionally, and spiritually. This is why, in this phase of your journey, prayer, fasting, and stillness become your most powerful weapons. Prayer becomes air. You breathe differently when you pray. Fasting sharpens your spirit, quiets the noise, and aligns you with heaven's frequency. Stillness becomes strength, because in a loud world, silence is where God whispers. These practices don't make you religious, they make you resilient. They reinforce your spirit so that warfare cannot break you and distractions cannot derail you. And through all of this growth, you begin to understand that living with awareness is not the same as living with fear. Awareness empowers you. Fear paralyzes you. Awareness opens your eyes. Fear closes your heart. Awareness prepares you. Fear traps you. God did not awaken your discernment so you could shrink back. He awakened it so you could walk with confidence, authority, and clarity. The more spiritually visible you become, the more spiritually anchored you must remain. You are no longer the version of yourself that moved blindly through life. You are awake. You are aware. You are spiritually luminous. And because of that, you must guard your energy like the treasure it is, not out of fear of being overwhelmed, but out of wisdom that understands your presence carries weight, your spirit carries assignment, and your light carries purpose. You were not meant to dim your glow to make others comfortable. You were meant to guard it so it shines exactly where heaven sends you next. There comes a point on the chosen one's journey where you look at yourself not physically, but spiritually, and you realize something irreversible has taken place. The version of you that once existed is gone, not lost, not missing, transformed. Life did not simply wound you, it refined you. Trials did not simply exhaust you, they awakened you. The battles you walked through did not break you, they remade you. And though the world may still expect the old you to appear, what stands in your place now is someone forged by fire and strengthened by purpose. Because truly, it was transformation through pain that became your turning point. Pain has a way of stripping away illusions, exposing truth, and revealing the core of who you are. It demanded honesty, it forced surrender, it pulled you into depths you never intended to explore, but those depths became the birthplace of your growth. While others ran from the fire, you learned to walk through it, and in that fire, the false layers burned away. Fear, insecurity, people-pleasing, self-doubt. What remained was authentic, purified, and unshakable. This is why silence became strength in ways you never expected. There was a time when quiet moments terrified you, because silence made you face yourself. But now, silence feels like home. It is in silence that your spirit regains clarity. It is in silence that God whispers direction. It is in silence that the noise of the world loses its influence. What once felt like loneliness has shifted into solitude's sacred space, where you hear truth without interference. And as silence widened your inner landscape, depth began replacing noise. You no longer tolerate shallow conversations masquerading as connection, nor environments filled with empty chaos. You crave depth, depth in purpose, depth in relationships, depth in thought, depth in spirit. You recognize real energy now. You gravitate toward authenticity, wisdom, and meaning. What once entertained you now exhausts you, because you have grown beyond the superficial. With this inner transformation, you also learned that you no longer beg for understanding. You stopped explaining yourself to people who never intended to understand. You stopped seeking validation from those blinded by their own limitations. You realized that your calling is not up for committee vote. Your purpose is not dependent on anyone's approval. You no longer shrink to be digestible. You no longer translate your spirit into a language others refuse to learn. You simply walk in who you are, and those meant to understand will understand. Through this evolution, your perspective sharpened, because you now see through a new lens. You interpret experiences differently. You discern motives quickly. You catch spiritual patterns that once seemed invisible. You notice timing, alignment, and divine orchestration. Your vision is no longer bound by what is seen. It is anchored in what is unfolding. You see people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. You see opportunities for what they truly represent, not what they appear to promise. This new lens is not cynicism. It is discernment matured by fire. Because of everything you've endured and everything that has awakened within you, every step you take now carries assignment. You walk with purpose. You speak with intention. You move with awareness. There is weight to your presence, a seriousness to your spirit, and clarity in your decisions. You no longer drift, you advance. You no longer wander, you align. You no longer react, you respond with spiritual accuracy. Your steps are guided, protected, and purposeful. And through this entire journey, you have slowly but surely become a vessel awakened. A vessel shaped by struggle, empowered by truth, and illuminated by purpose. You carry wisdom others feel. You carry peace others seek. You carry authority you didn't ask for but were chosen to embody. You are not the same because you were never meant to remain the same. Fire didn't destroy you, it revealed you. You are the remade version of yourself. Stronger, sharper, deeper, awake. And this awakened version of you is exactly who heaven intended you to become all along. As you grow into your calling, there comes a moment when you finally recognize something others may have sensed long before you did. When you walk in, rooms change. The energy shifts. Conversations redirect. Hearts become unsettled or comforted. Spiritual atmospheres respond to you, not because of anything you're consciously doing, but because of the authority you carry. You don't just enter spaces, you affect them. You imprint them. You influence them. You alter them simply by being present. And this is not ego. This is spiritual reality. Because of that shift, it becomes increasingly evident that some people will be drawn to you, while others will be repelled. Light has always attracted those seeking clarity and exposed those hiding in darkness. Your presence comforts the healed and convicts the wounded. It uplifts those aligned with their purpose and disturbs those resisting their own growth. Some feel safe around you, others feel seen. Some admire your strength, others resent your resilience. Both reactions confirm the same truth. Your presence is spiritually active. This is exactly why Matthew 5:14 resonates deeply with your life now. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Your light isn't subtle, it isn't quiet, it isn't easy to ignore. You don't blend into the background anymore, even when you try. Heaven has elevated your visibility because your life has become a beacon, guiding, illuminating, clarifying. You shine not because you want attention, but because you carry revelation. You shine because you survived what should have silenced you. You shine because darkness no longer has permission to dim you. And as this becomes more evident, you begin to understand that your identity is marked by heaven, not by people. You stopped defining yourself by what others said you were. You stopped shrinking yourself to fit roles you outgrew. You stopped allowing other people's limited vision to dictate your purpose. You're not who your past says you are. You're not who your critics say you are. You are who God has marked, shaped, refined, and positioned. You walk with a calling written before your birth, not a label assigned by opinion. That divine identity is why you don't fold under pressure anymore. Pressure no longer breaks you. It reveals you. It clarifies you. It activates you. Where others panic, you pause. Where others scatter, you stay grounded. You've been through enough storms to know that panic is not your portion. You breathe differently now. You move with a calm that is not natural, it is spiritual. Pressure doesn't crush you because you've already walked through fires hotter than anything you face now. And in this elevated state of awareness, you realize something profound. Your presence speaks louder than words. You don't have to announce yourself. You don't have to explain your calling. You don't have to convince anyone of your transformation. Your energy tells the story. Your peace tells the story. Your confidence tells the story. The atmosphere reacts before you say a single sentence. Who you are has become a message without you ever opening your mouth. All of this leads you into your next identity, a vessel of healing, clarity, and truth. Your presence soothes those in need of comfort. Your spirit awakens those who are spiritually asleep. Your insight brings understanding where there was confusion. You walk with a purity of intention that disarms fear, a depth that breaks through illusions, and a truth that cuts through deception. You bring alignment. You bring awareness. You bring spiritual order wherever you go. And the incredible part is this: you didn't force this. You didn't manufacture this. You became this. You became this because you answered the call. You endured the breaking. You survived the refining. You embraced the awakening. And now, when you walk into any room, the atmosphere knows it. The spirits feel it. The darkness notices it. The light expands because of it. You are no longer someone who simply exists. You are someone who shifts atmospheres. When Scripture speaks in 2 Corinthians 4-7 of treasure in jars of clay, it describes exactly what your life embodies. Fragile on the outside, tried by fire, weathered by storms, yet carrying a treasure so divine, so intentional, so protected that no earthly circumstance could destroy it. You are both the vessel and the miracle, the container and the revelation. You walk through the world as living proof that heaven places extraordinary purpose inside ordinary lives. And it is this treasure, this hidden brilliance, that darkness tried relentlessly to extinguish. Because whether you realize it or not, your life itself is proof of divine intervention. You have survived too much for survival to be random. You have walked away from things others never recovered from. You have risen from places designed to bury you. You have found peace in seasons meant to break you. Every chapter of your story carries fingerprints, not of luck, but of protection. You are living evidence that something greater has been guiding you, shielding you, carrying you through what should have ended you. And when you look back on the journey, you realize you didn't imagine those moments of rescue. You weren't being dramatic, misreading the situation, or overreacting. Those close calls were real. The danger was real. The fear was real. The intervention was real. The shift that pulled you out just in time was not coincidence, it was divine timing. Something stepped in. Something rerouted what was coming toward you. Something whispered, "Not this one." You felt it then, even if you couldn't explain it. And now, looking back with spiritual clarity, you can see the invisible hands that held you. This recognition is part of why your spirit is awakening. You are beginning to understand the patterns, the signs, the timing. You are noticing spiritual truths you once overlooked. You are connecting dots that used to seem random. There's a sensitivity, a knowing, a pulling inside of you that can no longer be ignored. What once felt like intuition is now revealed as divine guidance. What once felt like confusion is becoming spiritual clarity. Your spirit is rising to the surface, hungry for alignment, purpose, and truth. And as this awakening deepens, you realize something powerful. You're not overthinking, you're remembering. Remembering who you are, remembering what you've survived, remembering the moments when God whispered direction, remembering the times you felt protected without understanding why. This isn't anxiety, it's recognition. This isn't paranoia, it's discernment. You are recalling spiritual truths your soul always knew. Your spirit is not creating stories, it's uncovering them. Because the truth is, each near miss was a message. You are needed. Every time danger came close, heaven stepped between you and the impact. Every escape was an announcement. Every intervention was a reminder. Every rescue was a declaration that there is something in you the world still requires. You are needed for a conversation, a calling, a purpose, a breakthrough, a ripple effect you cannot yet fully see. The enemy recognized your importance before you did. That's why the attacks were so early, so intense, so persistent. You are living evidence of survival, living evidence of grace, living evidence of unseen protection, living evidence that destiny cannot be destroyed. And now, in this season, you are stepping into the understanding that all those rescues were not random, they were preparation. You were preserved not just to exist, but to impact, not just to live, but to awaken, not just to survive, but to become. You are the miracle walking in plain sight. You are the testimony wrapped in flesh. You are the evidence that heaven intervenes. And your life continues to speak truth, even when you say nothing at all. There comes a moment in every chosen life when you look back and finally understand that what felt like chaos was actually choreography. What seemed random was alignment. What appeared to be your breaking was shaping. And in that realization, you begin to see that even the seasons you misunderstood carried divine intelligence. The confusion you walked through was not a sign of abandonment, but a form of refining. a sacred fire designed to purify your intention, your perception, and your purpose. You weren't being scattered, you were being sifted. The situations that made no sense were dissolving what could not travel with you into the next chapter. And just when you questioned your worth, your direction, or your path, heaven was quietly rearranging the pieces of your destiny behind the scenes. In that hidden work season, the delays you suffered were actually protection, shields placed between you and battles you were never meant to fight, people who could not value you, and opportunities that would have minimized your calling. You weren't stagnant, you were being kept safe. Even the doors that slammed shut in your face, the opportunities that slipped through your fingers, the connections that ended abruptly, all of them were woven into a greater mercy. Every door God closed was designed to preserve your destiny, not punish you. What felt like rejection was often a redirection toward the path that carried your true identity. Heaven wasn't denying you, it was placing you where your anointing could breathe. And in this unfolding, you begin to remember the ancient truth spoken long before you were born. Ecclesiastes 3:1 whispers that to everything there is a season, a divine timing, and yours was never late. It was being orchestrated with precision. You were not behind. You were not forgotten. You were being aligned with who you needed to become before stepping into what you were called to do. Timing was your teacher, not your enemy. Now the atmosphere around you begins to shift, and you feel a new momentum beneath your feet. Spiritual winds start moving in your favor. Acceleration is now arriving, not because life suddenly became easier, but because you finally became ready. What once required force now unfolds with grace. What once felt blocked now feels inevitable. You are entering a season in which progress occurs not by striving, but by stepping into the flow designed for you. And as this acceleration takes root, restoration follows closely behind. Everything you thought you lost is returning, but transformed, purified, elevated, and multiplied. Relationships, opportunities, confidence, clarity, and purpose begin to reappear in upgraded forms. What left you was never meant to diminish you. It was clearing space for what truly belonged in your life. Restoration is not giving you back what you lost. It is giving you back what you could have never received had the old remained. So now you can breathe differently. You can walk differently. You can see differently. Because in the quiet truth rising within you, you know you were held back for impact, not forgotten. The waiting was preparation. The stillness was strategy. The silence was setup. You were being positioned, not punished, not delayed, not dismissed. You were being placed exactly where your light would matter most. And now, the placement becomes the unveiling. There comes a point on the path of awakening when you stop moving on autopilot and begin living with holy precision. You no longer drift through your days, your choices, your rhythms, your thoughts, all become deliberate acts of alignment. And this shift begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, in the early hours of the day, where your morning stillness becomes your spiritual grounding, a sacred space where you steady your breath, anchor your spirit, and remind your soul of who you are becoming. In this stillness, you are not just waking up, you are tuning in. As you move through your day, you start honoring your inner signals with a sensitivity you once ignored. You understand now that your body is not just flesh. It is a vessel carrying ancient wisdom and divine instinct. So, listening to your body becomes a form of discernment, a compass pointing you toward what nourishes you and away from what drains you. You eat with awareness, rest with purpose, speak with clarity, and withdraw when your spirit whispers that something is off. This is not avoidance, it is wisdom. And in that wisdom, you learn to speak life over yourself. You no longer wait for external validation to confirm your identity. Instead, you declare it boldly into your atmosphere, speaking affirmations like, "I am covered, I am chosen," becomes your spiritual stance, a daily declaration that aligns your inner world with heaven's truth. These words are not wishful thinking. They are grounding forces that keep your mind clear, your heart steady, and your spirit fortified. From this strengthened center, your creativity awakens. What once felt blocked now flows. What once felt distant now feels inevitable. Creative expression becomes a divine release, a way for your spirit to breathe and your purpose to speak. Whether you write, sing, design, build, or imagine, you recognize creativity not as hobby, but as holy language. Your gifts are no longer optional, they are assignments. And as you create, you also return to the practices that anchored your older wounds and sharpened your spiritual clarity. Journaling, fasting, and silence now become your alignment. Tools that center your thoughts, clear the noise around you, and keep you connected to the source. These are not rituals, they are recalibration points that bring your heart back into harmony when life tries to scatter you. In this new chapter, you refuse to shrink, you refuse to dim. No shrinking, no dimming becomes the line you draw in the sand. The declaration that you will no longer minimize your light to comfort those intimidated by it. You recognize now that your glow is not arrogance, it is obedience. You shine not to be seen, but to illuminate the path for others walking through their own darkness. And so you rise into each day with strength in your steps and clarity in your eyes. You walk in your light with authority, not because you seek attention, but because you finally understand the weight of what you carry. Your presence becomes intentional. Your decisions become precise. Your voice becomes steady. You are no longer trying to survive, you are choosing to live awakened. This is the life you were prepared for. A life governed by alignment, shaped by discernment, and carried by divine intention. You no longer wander. You walk with purpose. You move with heaven's rhythm. You live as the one chosen to rise. As you prepare your spirit to enter this moment, you begin with a deep breath that invites spiritual stillness, allowing the noise of life to fall away so your heart can become a sanctuary once again. In this pause, your soul reorients itself toward heaven, your mind quiets its scattered thoughts, and your spirit stretches open like a window to the morning light. From this internal quiet, you acknowledge God as the author and protector of your entire story, the one who has written every chapter with wisdom, guarded every breath with intention, and carried you through battles you never even saw forming. You recognize that every escape, every rescue, every moment where danger dissolved into deliverance was not coincidence, it was orchestration. And so, in this sacred acknowledgement, your posture becomes one of humility and reverence. With your heart open, you express gratitude for the escapes, breakthroughs, and rescues that carried you here. You thank God for the nights you thought were going to break you, but instead bent you toward purpose. You thank Him for the interruptions that saved your life, for the delays that protected your destiny, for the storms that purified your direction. Gratitude becomes the doorway that shifts everything. And now, standing in this awareness, you break every false identity that ever tried to attach itself to you. Every lie, every label, every memory that whispered not enough, unworthy, or forgotten. You dismantle them in the presence of the one who named you, long before the world tried to define you. You release every old narrative and watch them fall like chains to the ground. In the space those broken identities once occupied, you receive purpose, clarity, and anointing, welcoming the divine assignment that was always meant for you. You ask God to illuminate what is yours to build, yours to heal, yours to carry, and yours to impact. You receive clarity that silences confusion. You receive anointing that strengthens your calling. You receive purpose that makes the path ahead unmistakable. From that place of receptivity, you activate the gifts that have been dormant within you, calling forth creativity, wisdom, discernment, leadership, compassion, courage, every ability placed in you before birth. You ask God to stir them, sharpen them, and align them with His timing. These gifts are not random. They are tools for your assignment. And as you stand in activation, you declare that pain was preparation, not punishment, reframing your past through heaven's perspective. You understand now that what hurt you also shaped you. What tested you also trained you. What stretched you also strengthened you. Pain has lost its power to define you. Now it simply refines you. With renewed strength rising in your chest, you release fear, bitterness, and regret, surrendering every emotional weight that tried to anchor you to old seasons. You let go of what tried to crush your spirit, You let go of what tried to distort your future. You let go because you are ready to rise. And with a steady voice and awakened conviction, you declare your identity. I am chosen. I am rising. You speak it not as a wish, but as a decree, as a spiritual truth that cuts through every remaining shadow. Finally, with your spirit lifted and your activation sealed, you close this prayer in the name of Jesus, trusting that what has begun in this moment will ripple through every step of the journey ahead. Amen. As you arrive at this closing moment, you are invited to type the words, I receive it. Amen. This is not just a comment or a gesture. It is a spiritual agreement, a seal, a declaration that your spirit recognizes truth and chooses to step into alignment with it. Your written words become a visible echo of what God is awakening deep within you. They become a line drawn in the sand between who you were and who you are rising to become. And with that declaration, your words now mark the moment of activation, because when a chosen one speaks agreement aloud, heaven responds. You are not simply reading a message. You are stepping into a covenant moment where your identity, your survival, your purpose, and your future converge. Words are spiritual keys. Words are contracts. Words are catalysts. And the words you choose to speak right now will carry authority into the days ahead. When you say, I receive it, you are opening the door for healing, clarity, strength, and direction to flow into your life without resistance. With that activation stirring, you are encouraged to subscribe, stay connected, and remain open to continued guidance, because chosen ones cannot walk their path alone. Every step of your journey ahead will require nourishment, instruction, and reminders of who you are when the world tries to distract you. When you stay connected to truth, you stay aligned with the identity God purified through every escape, every crisis, and every awakening moment. Guidance becomes the steady hand that helps you walk into seasons you once feared, and connection becomes the soil that allows your gifts to grow without interference. And in this atmosphere of awakening, you are reminded that this moment is the beginning, not the end. What you feel rising inside you is not completion, it is ignition. You are standing at the threshold of a new life, not closing the chapter of an old one. You are stepping into clarity, strength, discernment, and presence in ways you were never allowed to access before your battles refined you. This moment marks the starting point of your acceleration, your alignment, and your transformation. The journey ahead has been waiting for you. Heaven has been waiting for you. Your destiny has been waiting for you. As this truth settles into your spirit, you are instructed to stay grounded, stay covered, and stay ready, because chosen ones are called to walk with intention. Staying grounded means keeping your roots deep in prayer, stillness, and discernment, so that no storm can uproot what God has already established in you. Staying covered means walking with spiritual awareness, keeping your heart protected, and maintaining boundaries that honor your calling. Staying ready means living with expectation, knowing that new doors, new assignments, and new spiritual responsibilities are approaching. You have survived too much to live passively. You have encountered too much divine intervention to walk blindly. You have been preserved too intentionally to ignore the weight you now carry. So take this final breath, settle your spirit, and step forward knowing this. Your survival was intentional. Your awakening is divine. Your purpose is unfolding, and your activation has already begun. If your spirit agrees, type the words, I receive it. Amen. And let heaven mark this moment.